Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. Oakland Unified School District goes with Chromebooks and Google Apps, sponsored by Google. We're very happy to have today's speakers, Mark Rennie from Google for Education and John Krull, Oakland Unified School District in California. Mark Rennie is part of the Google for Education team. He works with superintendents, technology, and curriculum departments to give students access to the web and a world of resources. John began his career as an educator and a systems engineer. He is currently the Information Technology Officer at Oakland Unified School District, where he supports the mission to make all Oakland students college, career, and community ready. Before I pass things off, I'd like to mention two quick things. If at any time during the presentation you have questions, please post them in the Q&A panel on the lower right-hand side of your screen. You are also encouraged to tweet your questions and comments to our speakers. John's Twitter handle is @JOHNKRULL, and Mark's Twitter handle is @MARKRENNE. Lastly, please be on the lookout for a follow-up email with a copy of the slides and a link to the archive to review and share with colleagues. Now I'd like to pass things off to John.
Hi, Christine. This is Mark. I think probably wanted to pass it over to me for the first part here. Want to welcome everybody. No worries.
Right.
No worries. Wanted to welcome everybody. I know it's a super busy time at school, and I do appreciate you all taking the time to listen. You'll have a great time listening to John today and learn about what Oakland had done, very similar to the kinds of things I'm sure you're doing in your district. A quick little agenda here. We're going to start off talking just for a few minutes about what Google is up to in the technology sector, our plans for Google for Education, and then most of today's webinar will be from John talking about the story in Oakland. He'll cover some ideas around hardware and selection and those sorts of things, but mostly on driving, of course, those hard choices that you make every day when choosing how to spend dollars in the school districts. So at the Google side of things for education, we tend to think about this number a bit. And many of you may have seen this before in one of our presentations. But 60% is a number that sort of drives our vision and focus. As you probably know, we do sell some devices like Android tablets and Chromebooks, but our focus is on all devices, right? How do we make iPads work? How do we make Surface tablets work? How do we make sure that all these devices can participate? But this 60% is even more important to us. And this 60% is a number that says these are the jobs, 60% of the jobs in the future don't even exist yet. So if you think 15 years ago, before there was a Google, who would have imagined that there would be jobs like those at a Google or a Facebook or any of these high-tech companies? And it's not, of course, just the high-tech companies. These changes are taking place across all businesses. So even if you're in a very industrial-type environment, obviously technology works its way in, and the kind of work that you have to do, the idea of collaboration as a focus, as opposed to competition. In other words, everything that we do is how does a group of folks move a project forward. These tools, the idea of working as a group, the idea of always being in beta, we call it, where nothing's ever finished, the idea is that you're always constantly improving. These types of things and these attributes of jobs are what we focus our products on to help train kids to do. And let's take some sort of real-world explanation of that. So, for example, we have school districts that use our tools. You'll see up in the upper left-hand corner here, a lot of parents for a while were deployed in various places, and they used our Hangouts and Chromebooks to allow their parents to stay connected with families. In the upper right, this is very common to bring somebody who's an outside expert into your school district. Literally, a rocket scientist can show up in your math class. Or if you have grandparents who maybe have a special skill, they can be brought into the classroom. And what's nice about this is this technology, obviously on the Google part, is all free and low cost. So it's a question of getting access. It's a question of opening up that classroom beyond the four walls. In the lower left, you'll see a project of ours to digitize all of the great paintings so that folks can go and get a museum quality look at these paintings. You can zoom in, and get literally all of the brush strokes in the ceiling. Certainly not as good as going to a museum, but for those kids that don't have a chance to visit the Louvre, this is an opportunity to see those paintings. And then lastly, we've started mapping some very interesting places, including underwater. So using our same technology that you're familiar with the Street View maps, you get a chance to see underwater and explore places you never have an opportunity to go to. So again, the focus here is reaching out and engaging students in ways that would not be possible without this kind of technology. And when we build technology, our focus is always on making it open, making sure that it can be used by anybody, anywhere, on any device. So everything we do, all the tools we build, we want to make sure that whatever device you choose, you have an opportunity to use it. And so, for example, as a teacher, this is very important in the sense that as you look around your classroom, you don't have to sort of worry, is this computer on this version of some product or that version? If they go home at night, are they going to have that same program available to them? And if they do, is it going to be the same version? You know, what happens if they're at grandma's house or if they have daycare? With our products, because they're based on the web, they have access to those products anywhere, anytime, on any device. So we kind of divide this into 4 big categories. How do we empower folks to be able to get at this world of resources on the web? How do we make sure that they have a choice so that all of these things work on those devices? And then how do we make sure that we build into everything this idea of teamwork, the idea of collaboration? How do we make it super simple so that if you have a document that you're working on, other people can look at the document and participate or comment on it, make suggestions, those kinds of things. And many of you have probably heard about our new product Classroom that we recently released to the, has moved, it's not quite out of beta, we can call it, but we've certainly moved it to where everybody can use it. And the idea with Classroom is sort of less teching, more teaching, to give teachers the opportunity to distribute, collect, and report assignments without having to worry about the paper inherent to that process. And then lastly, when we build this, can we support very large school districts, medium-sized school districts, and small school districts? So whether you have 1,000 kids or 1 million kids, do these technologies work? And so we apply these 4 areas to everything. And that turns out to be, again, taking a little less theoretical approach and more of a product, you know, sort of a what can I buy today approach. We divide things up into platform, devices, and content. And you're free to use any part of this on its own. So for example, platform includes you know, our Gmail, our Google Drive, our Docs, which is a spreadsheet, word processor, and presentation manager, our devices, which include Chromebooks and Android tablets, and lastly, all of the great content out there. So there's content from Google, which is like YouTube and you know, the Play Store and various things. And then there's also great content from all sorts of providers like Khan Academy, Open Educational Resources, lots of different places to get great content. And again, all open, all available on multiple devices. Talked a little bit about Google Apps. Google Drive, as many of you know, is an online disk type storage area. With Google Apps for Education, you get 30 gigabytes of storage, and that storage does not get counted against by any documents you create. So you could create as many Google documents as you want and still have 30 gigabytes of space. Many of you have seen the Chromebooks. There's a lot of different models now, including some recently that all sort of stand type models, like a tent, and you know, a couple of different touch models. So almost every manufacturer that your school likes and uses, whether it's you know, whatever brand it is, probably has a Chromebook available for it. And again, the secret of the Chromebooks, very easy to manage, very easy to use. They boot up quickly, all of the kinds of things you've probably heard about. And Google Apps is used by 30 million students, teachers, and staff across the world. So lots of experience, you know, lots of great products for you. And then, of course, even worldwide, it's used in more than 180 countries. And of course, it all costs nothing. So for your school district, for students, faculty, staff, interested parties, there's no charge. And just to give one quick example of sort of that scalability side of things, the country of Malaysia recently began a project to put and again, they don't have wireless connections. They've chosen to work with a telephone partner to allow connected computers to every child in Malaysia. And this process is rolling out. We'll see that we've got 11 million folks that have signed up for Google Apps, distributed 100,000 Chromebooks. I would definitely encourage you to visit our website, which is google.com/edu, get lots of information about this, or contact us through the website and have your local rep give you a call. So and hopefully that was just a quick overview just to kind of help. John will probably talk a little bit more about the reality of this in his district. But I definitely want to introduce you now to John Krull from the Oakland Unified School District. Turn the presentation over to him, and thank you so much for joining us this morning, John. And make sure to unmute yourself there.
Hi, this is John Krull with the Oakland Unified School District. Thank you, Mark. Oakland Unified is the same, or Oakland is the same city where the Oakland Raiders play, and sometimes I like to think of the Oakland Raiders when I think of Oakland because we have lots of potential. Oakland recently got rated, Oakland Unified got rated an F for our overall standing in the state. However, we're proud that for the last 5 years we've been the most improved school district in the state of California. So why have we improved? It's been through several initiatives over the last few years. We had a small schools movement, for instance. We've focused on social-emotional learning, and most recently we've focused on blended learning. With blended learning, we were able to increase student engagement and increase test scores and overall graduation rates. And our foundation for our blended learning is Google Apps. So why do we choose Google Apps? There's a couple of reasons. One is because of Google Drive. We ended up making Google Drive the place for all student and teacher documents. And we also chose Google because of its open platform. And by logging into Google, it opens up, like Mark talked about, lots of content. Not only from Google, though, but lots of third parties. For instance, Khan Academy. So, for instance, this shows how a student logs in to Google Apps for Education, and immediately they have access, and I put a couple examples of what we use in Oakland Unified. We use Guru, which is a great collection of free educational resources. I mentioned Khan Academy, and we use Gaggle for filtering student email. So how do we set up Google for Education? Some school districts use Active Directory. What we do is we partner with a third party called Clever. And what Clever does is it connects directly with our student information system, which in a large district of nearly 40,000 students is changing regularly. What Clever does is connects our student information system and puts all the students into Google, and any changes that happen daily are then passed on to Google. But Clever is a little bit more. What we're able to do with Clever is to create a single login page to all of our educational resources. So this can be Google Apps, it can be the third parties, and this can either be done with a Google site web page, or Clever themselves offers a single sign-in portal. So here's a little bit of an overview of how we use Google Apps as a platform. So you can see Aries is our student information system. That's tied into Google with Clever. And then we've also added other foundational software like Hapara, which enables us to easily manage Google Docs. Teachers, for instance, can pass out docs to their class. We're using nGrade, which is a new platform. It's essentially a learning management system and an assessment system together, along with a parent portal and gradebook. We're rolling out a big pilot of that in the district this year, and we're also using Schoology. So what are we trying to do with all this? What we're really trying to do is move from blended learning, which has a focus on technology, to one of personalized learning, which technology is a part, but we really want to be looking at the individual child, teaching based on the data, and technology is part of it. So what is personalized learning in Oakland Unified? We take 4 of the aspects of personalized learning from the Gates Foundation's Next Gen Systems Initiative, and then we personalized it for Oakland, and we added social-emotional learning because we found that to be very important with our students, and then also contextualized learning. In Oakland, we really believe in making sure students see a reason for their learning and have a path out into the community, and they understand that they're going to be college, career, and community ready. So we knew what we wanted. We did some engagement, and I'm going to show you how we ended up with Chromebooks. So we did engagement with our stakeholders, and we found out people lacked wireless, so we added wireless. But more importantly, the computers were old. They were generally in the backs of classrooms or they were in labs. And supporting Windows and Mac devices was very hard, so we got a bad rating on that. So at Oakland, we decided we needed more devices, more network, and more support. And with an eye towards it being equitable, supportable, and standardized. Our goal is to create an excellent environment for teaching and learning. So that led us to the Chromebook. After much testing, we rolled out the Dell Chromebook last spring. With much success, we rolled out 10,000 of them. Why did we choose Chromebooks, and Dell in particular, the lowest cost laptop? The total cost of ownership with the cost of techs, by rolling out Chromebooks, we were able to not do any hires at all. A little bit later, I will talk about our PD, our professional development. Great thing about the Chromebooks are there's no installations and there's no upgrades. I think Mark talked about that. We did the SBAC testing. We were able to roll out the SBAC secure browser to 10,000 Chromebooks with no problem, with just one of our people back at the district data center. And then the Chromebooks themselves, they automatically upgrade. And we were able to roll out these computers with no additional infrastructure. And I always recommend to people, Chromebooks really make sense if you've gone Google already. So in Oakland, our first initiative was getting onto Google Apps like I showed you earlier, and then rolling out the Chromebooks was just the next level of evolution. And in our early blended learning pilots, we did use Chromebooks, and those were very successful. So in Oakland, we're doing a little bit of a different one-to-one initiative. We're not issuing every student a Chromebook. What we're doing is giving students the device and platform that they need for the right job. So for us, what we decided to do with the Chromebooks was base it on the number of test takers, because Chromebook was going to be our platform for taking tests, but it's not necessarily the only device the students are going to be using. So this was really interesting. We were able to And in this example, I've got 10 classes, and they take 4 tests. They do 4 test starts, and if they had only one environment, let's say one lab or one cart, and they only used it once a day for testing, it would take them 40 days to test. So we use this formula to figure out how many Chromebooks we needed. And by doing a little bit of algebra, instead of figuring out how many days it would take to test, you can figure out, okay, I want to finish testing in 15 days, and with the other same variables, you would realize that you needed 3 environments. So in that sample school, we provided them with 3 Chromebook carts that were all ready for testing. Also, the beauty of the Chromebooks, we were able to deliver completely ready-to-go carts for each site by using a third party that set everything up. We like to think of the triangle here in Oakland, where we're not just talking about technology, but we're talking about teaching and learning. But the team that rolled out the Chromebooks, it involved the teaching and learning team, the assessment team, and the technology team. So my suggestion to other school districts that are thinking about rolling out Chromebooks, don't make it a technology initiative, don't make it an assessment initiative or just a teaching and learning one, but get everybody in the same room. We really broke down some silos in working this way. And as I'm talking about that, I also want to emphasize the first year, which was last year when we rolled these Chromebooks out, the focus really was on the assessments. It was basically getting the Chromebooks out, getting students used to them with their Google Apps accounts, and then focusing on making sure that they could do the SBAC assessment that we do here in California. This year, we're getting back to that foundation of teaching and learning. So our focus this year, although we have the test in the spring, is helping schools, principals, teachers, and students use these Chromebooks for everyday teaching and learning. As I mentioned, having the communication across all these groups was really important. We're continuing to do that this year. We're really trying to enable the schools to move forward with a teaching and learning focus. Again, I would recommend over-communicating. The more you talk to principals, the more you talk to teacher leaders, the more you talk to the teachers, the better your rollout is going to be. All right, so what did we do for professional development? What I talked about is we didn't hire any IT staff for this whole Chromebook rollout, neither for the Google Apps or for the Chromebook rollout themselves. But what we did is we got teacher leaders, we enlisted teacher leaders from each site, and we called them instructional technology teacher leaders. We based them, and we did provide them with a stipend, and the number of stipends was based on how large the school was. Schools could choose whether to have one teacher leader or multiple, depending on the sites. They all came in centrally for training. We gave every one of these teachers, we rolled out 500 teacher Chromebooks to really get them on board. So I think that's really important. Giving the teachers the tools, getting them trained centrally, and then empowering them to go back to their schools to be a leader. That made our SBAC testing very, very successful. I would say a model for the state of California. And this year, the teacher leaders did summer workshops where they came in and with their Chromebooks and changed that focus towards education. So that was very successful. All right, so here's our Chromebook cart. What's missing, what's cool that we did in Oakland, again, I would recommend this for other districts depending on your wireless infrastructure. We were unable to have a complete wireless upgrade. For us, that meant a brand new wireless access point, state-of-the-art in every classroom. We did have some old wireless, but what we did for our initial rollout is we attached a wireless access point to each cart. So what that ensured for testing was each classroom that was testing, they had state-of-the-art wireless right there in the classroom. And we made this was a little techie, but we made a SSID that was specific for the Chromebooks. So when the Chromebooks connected, they would connect to that SSID. There may have been a weaker wireless or an older wireless in the classroom or near the classroom, and that still worked as is. So that gave us dedicated bandwidth and, again, was a real success. This summer, we've been upgrading the district and, indeed, putting state-of-the-art wireless Meraki access points in each classroom. So as a school is complete, we then convert their cart and we take their access point off that and reuse it. But it's really a good transition strategy. So there's the Meraki that we use. We also make sure that we have enough bandwidth from each site. So you can see, even if you don't know gigabits and megabits, you can see that our speeds from each site is improving over the years. So with the Chromebooks and with Google Apps, as everybody I think knows, is you generally want to be online. Yes, most apps now are moving to have an offline mode, but you really want to make sure that you have a strong wireless infrastructure and then a good WAN or internet backbone to support that, especially as we're moving to a one-to-one, however your district defines that. There's going to be a lot of devices online. So I want to talk a little bit about our initiative with the teachers having Chromebooks. So in Oakland, we're really trying to do what Wayne Gretzky says, and that is skate to where the puck's going to be. Now, we need something in the meantime. We're kind of looking forward. We're making sure that all of our educational applications and all of our operational applications going forward are HTML5 and work great on Chrome and integrate with Google. But that's not the case right now. So we still have legacy applications that run on Windows, and we need to provide a solution. So a great thing about the Chrome browser is it's optimized for HTML5, which gives a lot of capability. So we're partnering, or Google's actually partnering with VMware to make sure that there's a really robust solution. So using HTML5 browser, you're able to go to VMware, and in VMware you can have a virtualized desktop that could be running Windows. So we piloted that last year, and then this year we're planning on rolling that out to about 200 teachers and staff members to allow them to use Windows in the Google HTML5 interface. So most of their work will be done in Chrome and on the web, and then when they need to access a legacy application, for instance, our student information system, our financial system, they can just click on a link which brings up a web-based virtual machine that would then bring up Windows, and then they can run those applications inside Windows, inside the Chrome browser. So we're really excited about that. Before I finish up, I wanted to point to a couple of URLs. One is our partnership with Dell, where we bought the 10,000 Chromebooks. I have a link to that. And then also, Fortune Magazine did a really great article that talked about, the name of the article was The Dawn of the Chrome Age. A neat thing about that article is it really talks about like where things are going, and Chrome is really, it's at its dawn right now. It's just starting out and has a bright future. And then the partnership between Google and VMware, that's just interesting. You know, if your districts are concerned about going with a web-based operating system, what this partnership does is gives you the best of both worlds, and also gives you a pathway, because especially in larger districts, you can't do change overnight. So for a long-term solution, that kind of helps get you there. So with that, I think we'll be open for questions. Feel free to tweet me directly or Mark. And with that, I'll say thank you. Thanks for listening. I will pass the mic to our moderator.
Thank you so much. So the first question for our Q&A is for John. One of the audience member wants to know, how did OUSD determine the actual effects of their investment in whatever tools they are deciding to buy on the learning by children?
We did several measurements with our blended pilot schools we just measured their overall increase in those classrooms. And admittedly, it's probably not a study that followed all the statistical rules. And then we also did a lot of surveying of students, teachers, that talked about engagement and their feelings about how the blended learning and now personalized learning is helping them.
All right, thank you. Next question for Mark. Do you know if teachers have access to student files through Gaggle or Google?
I'm sorry, do teachers have access to student files?
Correct.
Yeah, so the answer is, of course, it depends on how the district sets things up. So John mentioned, for example, they use Hapara, which is a third-party partner product of ours. And with Hapara, when the let's call it a directory structure, but when the folders are set up, teachers are automatically given access to students' data, simply because the idea is that rather than kind of this idea of I take a paper, I produce content, I turn it into the teacher grades it, and returns it. What we try to foster is an environment where the teacher is monitoring the process as it goes along. So the teacher is in there making suggestions, saying, okay, for example, let's say we're doing a paper about bees. We might say, okay, you've done good on the husbandry side, but a little bit more on gathering food, and just kind of nudge the team as it goes along. Or I might say, John's participating quite a bit in this group, but I don't see Mark's contribution in this document. So Mark, maybe you could do some work around some area. With our new product, Classroom, which also is a very modest offering that allows these folders to be automatically set up. Again, teachers do have access to the content, and then when it's turned in, they would make whatever comments and stuff they want, and then they can send it back to the students. But yes, they do. On the other hand, if you're a district that does not want that, you can set up the process differently.
All right, thank you. I have another question for you.
Sure.
Are Chromebooks working with interactive whiteboards?
The answer is yes. Some vendors are. We're working with all of the major vendors. We maintain a large Chrome laboratory here in California, and we try to, we are open to assisting all vendors to bring their products to the web. And by the way, when they work with us, they work with everybody, right? Everything that we do, as I mentioned before, if you get your product working with us, then it works with any web browser. So then it automatically works with all of our friends at Apple and Microsoft and what have you. So yes, some do. We certainly are looking for better integration. We're working with all of the partners. And it's hard for our partners to move from sort of this dedicated, I'm going to have this running on a Mac in a certain browser and a certain software level, to I just want to make it web enabled. And so as districts like Oakland and other districts that are listening today, as you go to your vendors and say, we want a web version of this, you'll see that change. Somebody had mentioned, a matter of fact, about the Blackboard Collaborate, and I'll just throw that question in here as well. One of the challenges with some of the Blackboard products is that they use Java. Both, Apple and Google have made a clear statement that Java is not a strategy that we use. Java is not supported on the Chromebooks. So those products, as long as they use Java, won't work on the Chromebooks. On the other hand, we've seen all these great applications come out that are web only. You kind of think about Khan Academy a few years ago, people kind of scratched their head, what's this all about? Or I also mentioned what we call OER, or Open Education Resources. And John mentioned some great ones around Guru and some other folks who have come from nowhere and are just producing amazing content. So what I encourage people to do is talk to their vendors, encourage a web version of it, send them to us, because again, we have a lab full of folks that will help them make changes. And if you think where we started 2.5 years ago, we literally had nothing. And so it's amazing the number of various things that you can now do with Chromebooks. So.
Great, thank you. For John, what were or are some of the things that you did in the teacher training for the Chromebook and related program?
One of the great things that we did with the teachers for our training is we personalized it. So what we were planning on doing we want them to do with students, we did with them. So first off, we had schools rate themselves from 1 to 4, and not that it was negative, like 1 was emerging. So we tried to make it positive. So we tailored some things for the different groups. We also got groups together in a large gym that we converted it to our training center. I'm here in an old school, and we had the groups just work together at their own pace on materials that we created. We used the example of an exit ticket. So in order to move on, so again, moving at their own rate, teachers would have to pass an exit, would have to turn in an exit ticket to move to the next level. So I think those are real quickly some of the things we did. We tried to not have too much just pure lecture. We wanted to recognize different schools are at different places, and that's okay. So any follow-up is okay. If you have any follow-up questions, let me know.
Yeah, and there's also a question about Clever. I answered the wrong question there, but sorry, I apologize. The question was about Clever for two-way integration, and not quite sure I'm understanding the two-way. They might be asking about changes from Google to your system, but maybe if you want to talk about what Clever does for you, and I assume it's a one-way from the information system.
Yeah, I can address that. So Clever is a great partner. Right now, they are one way, but school districts, when you're talking to your vendors, you want to ask them to be cleverized, because the beauty of being cleverized is they're going to be easily integrated with Google. So that's a nice ask. Or if they're not, just ask them how they plan on being integrated with Google. That's really important. I talked about Ngrade a little bit. There are several vendors, and Ngrade is one of them, that's working on two-way. So that's why we're doing a big pilot with Ngrade this year, because what Ngrade is going to do is with these third-party vendors, it's not just a single sign-on to get the students in there, but coming back is going to be engagement data, usage data, as well as performance data. And that's going to go right into the Ngrade gradebook that the teacher is using for her own or his own testing.
Great. Another question for John. Do you allow Chromebooks to go home with students? Why or why not?
Generally, we do not allow the Chromebooks to go home, and this is a local decision. For us, there's many areas of Oakland where carrying Chromebooks home is just not a good idea. We are piloting it in one school, but we have a different initiative here. What we're trying to do is provide the Chromebooks at school, make sure our rec centers and libraries have enough computers, Chromebooks, whatever, for that time between home and school, between school and home, and that every student has a computer at home. So we're working on that. And the beauty of all this, it kind of goes back to Google Apps, is it doesn't matter what your computer you're using. So we encourage everybody to use the Chrome browser, and all their files are saved in Google Drive. So I think really the use of having one computer is kind of an old model, I think, frankly. And so our goal is a little broader. Every kid has a computer at home, and every kid has a computer when they need it at school.
Or, you know, a mobile device, iPads, iPhones, Android tablets, whatever the case may be.
Exactly. And often that's, you know, when you ask adults, that's how adults are operating.
Great. So we have time for just a few more questions, and then we'll conclude. Mark, here's a question for you. What are the applications of Chrome Remote Desktop, and do they differ very much from normal, regular Chromebooks?
Well, so the difference of, and again, the virtualized stuff, in other words, coming from a Chromebook, is all the same. In fact, we build that into the Chromebooks, so they make great virtual clients. As John had mentioned, one of their partners virtualizes a number of the applications. So if your district, you know, maybe you have a payroll app, or maybe there's, you know, a grading app, or in some states, for example, in Washington, there's a large consortium that does all the student reporting, and that application requires, for another example is like Java, we've mentioned before. And so the virtualization on the Chromebook is the same as the Chrome, and even better because it's built in. The difference is you cannot remote into a Chromebook. So for example, I can't take over a Chromebook from someone else and operate it. So it is a one-way virtualization out of the Chromebook using the virtualization client.
Perfect.
And I hope that helps. If folks have more questions, you know, more detailed questions or whatever, we can hook you up with that. Now, oftentimes, you know, and again, you can have a mixed environment. So for example, if this is a tool that teachers use every day, virtualization might not be a good solution. So they might have a Mac on their desk while their students have Chromebooks. So, you know, it's not, nothing has to be a 100% answer. You know, you kind of, I think what folks like John do is they sort of look at the profile of their users, and then they make decisions based on what that user does and apply the right box to it.
Great answer. Thank you. To John, here's a question. I can see how collaborative learning is helped by technology, but what did it do for social or emotional learning?
Great question. So, from my understanding, I'm not out there so much with the teachers doing that. There is I might have to tweet this a little bit later, but I do have a resource on that our teachers follow. But collaboration is a big part of that. Collaboration, cooperation, communication. So some of those, you know, those C's, I think there's 5 of them. The Google platform can be part of that.
Okay, here's another question for you. This teacher says they use the BB Blackboard Collaborate virtual classrooms for live class sessions. Are there any books which have enough memory that we can access the bbcollaborate.com classroom, some schools had Chromebooks last year, but BB said they did not have enough memory for them to access the virtual room.
Yeah, and let me step on that one too. I'm not quite sure what they were using because, again, traditionally I assume it's Blackboard, Collaborate. That generally is I'm not aware of actually a Chromebook solution for that other than through virtualization. So, but I could be wrong. So, and you're not using? Do you use Blackboard, John?
No, we don't. But just about memory in general, we notice a speed improvement with more memory. So again, school districts out there looking at Chromebooks, don't necessarily just go for the cheapest Chromebook out there. We found through our testing that more memory was beneficial. So when we went with our Dell Chromebooks, we chose the 4 GB version. And you can benchmark these Chromebooks against each other using a website called speed-battle.com. And what Speed Battle does is it does a web-based speed test of the processor, not the internet or anything. And it's a good neutral thing to just kind of look at, okay, you know, how does the Samsung compare with the Dell or HP?
Yeah, and the delta there, you know, at retail, the delta between 2 gig and 4 gig is about $20 per machine. So depending on what you're doing, if you're at a high school versus an elementary school, it really relates to the number of tabs that they have open and the kinds of things they're trying to do with the machine. And being a tech guy for a couple of years, I can always say more memory is better. That's never a lie, I guarantee you.
All right, well, do you have any closing comments, either of our speakers?
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
I'll just say that standardizing on the Google platform has really helped us in making it a foundation for all of our teaching and learning with technology. Has been great, and we look forward to using it in the future.
That's great. And I would just say thanks again, John, for the work you guys do. And I would add that John put together some amazing documentation during this process that may be useful for some of you folks, actually describing all of the different pieces that went into their carts, you know, where the wireless access point should be. So they did a lot of great work making this a very deployable kind of solution across a lot of different schools. So there's work to be done on the technical side, of course, but getting it in the hands of the kids is the most exciting part. And just want to let you know, everything we do is a work in progress. So we'd love your feedback on the things we should be working on at Google, the things that, you know, we spent the last couple of years putting together a classroom, and we hope that's helpful to you, as well as a lot of our great partners have good stuff out there. John had mentioned Clever, which is a great sign-in solution, and some other folks. So appreciate the folks from eSchool having our conference today, and everybody for attending, because I know it's a busy time of the year.
Thank you, Mark and John. We love working with Google for Education. It's wonderful. And with that, we will conclude this afternoon's webinar. I'd like to thank you all, our attendees, for being a part of it. If we didn't get to your questions, or you didn't have time to ask them, or you think of them later, you can tweet your questions to our speakers using the Twitter handles @JOHNKRULL and @MARKRENNE. It's also what you see on screen. And for those of you who are looking to receive certificates of attendance, please keep an eye out for a follow-up email with a downloadable PDF. Thank you, and see you next time.